All right, good evening. We are here on Live with Chris Austin for another live show this week. I am going to start broadcasting from my personal business page each week as we start to get to know a lot of different people that I want all of you to get to know each week with me. It's important to me that I do this show because I really want people to get to know people that are up to some amazing things in life. And also, I think it's important to educate people on some things that maybe we're not so familiar with, I would say, as far as different things in the world. So tonight I'm really excited to introduce. I'm trying to taking a minute here because I'm trying to get this to share to a couple other pages and I'm having a little bit of a situation. So give me 1 second. All right. So it should be coming to you live on my personal Facebook page, as well as my business page on Chris Austin. And we'll be sharing it to a couple other pages in a few moments as well. So I wanted to take a moment to introduce tonight's guest. I have with me this evening transformational trainer, Carson Underwood, who is also one of my very best friends on this entire planet. And he is also an admin coordinator for your 10 Life Transformational Training Center that comes out of Orlando in Detroit. How are you doing tonight, Carson?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. I was so glad that you could make it tonight because I really want to talk to people because you are a trans man, right? You are a trans man living in the year 2020 in the United States of America.
That's a fact.
Yes. So tonight's episode is really to let people get to know you and start to learn a little bit about what it means to be transgender, right, in our society. Because a lot of times people aren't too sure what it is, or maybe sometimes people don't even know somebody, right, that is transgender and they don't really understand what that means. Or sometimes there's some questions that people maybe are too shy or too afraid to ask, right? Like when they meet different people.
Totally.
So I wanted people to really see that you're normal, right? That you
I
are a
mean,
normal
as
human.
normal as I could get, but yes.
Yes, that you are a normal human being. And I really wanted to talk about it, which you're so gracefully open to talking about tonight, about some things. So why don't we start the show off by really first, what does it mean to be transgender? Why don't you go ahead?
Hold on, you froze there for just a second.
Oh yeah. So what does it mean to be transgender?
Um, there's so many different terms that I could use, so I'm trying to think of like
You.
this. The
Yeah.
simplest one is basically you're transitioning from whatever gender you were assigned with at birth to another one, which I say another one because it's not always female to male or male to female. Some people now identify as neither or both, which is, I think the new term now is non binary, is what's used for
Hmm.
that term. I'm learning myself, so I can't just be like, I know all the answers. But yeah, and you'll hear a lot of people, especially in the LGBTQIA community, refer to heterosexual people as cis people. So cisgender is what you, like what I said, assigned at birth. So if someone was born a man and identifies as a man, they would be cisgender. If you were born as a woman and you still identify as a woman, you'd also be cisgender. And there are so many different spectrums of genders out there that, I mean, we could take the whole hour just talking about that. But for the sake of today, transgender is when you're transitioning from one gender to another.
Yes. Okay. So now the question is how old were you when you knew? Like if you were to really look back on
But really, I mean, it's interesting because I've really been thinking about it a lot lately. It came up for me like um I think it was around 2017, and I think it was because more of I knew what it meant. When I was a kid, I wasn't really educated on any of this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, I lived in a small town in the middle of nowhere in in Florida. It's called Belgrade, Florida, and there wasn't a lot of gay people around, even at that. So, let alone transgender people, forget about that. But if I would have been educated further back, I probably would have known about high school, to be completely honest. Because if I think about how I carried myself, what I really identified, what I resonated with, it was much more than just being a lesbian. I always felt like there was a piece of me that didn't feel like 100% me, and I never knew what it was. Um, and even into my adult life, I didn't really know a lot of gay people. Definitely didn't know anyone transgender at all until I started doing transformational work and I started meeting all walks of life. And it still didn't even occur to me then. And I actually was doing a course that was targeted around learning about gender and sexuality and all this kind of stuff. And it really opened my awareness to, I was like, wow, maybe that's the piece that's missing. But I was too scared to even like really dig deep into it. So I kind of just like put it away. And then this past year, even before COVID hit, believe it or not, um, I just always felt like there was something missing, and I didn't know what it was. Um, and through doing research, just because I wanted to know, um, I started seeing similar people with the same mindset of what I had, and they ended up being people who transitioned from female to male. And then I went and saw a psychiatrist therapist about it because I wanted to make sure. I didn't want to jump to conclusions or just like do, because this is a lot, and you can't really go backwards. Some people believe you can, but physically you can't really go backwards from this. So I wanted to really make sure um, that this is what it was. And through talking to a lot of different people, it made it more clear that this was definitely the path that I was meant to go down for sure.
Okay. So then when you realized, you said in high school, so you said it was more than a lesbian. So for a while in your life, you lived your life and identified as a lesbian then.
Yes, since I was about 18 years old, I identified as a lesbian,
Okay. And then how old were you when you uh, realized that you were transgender?
which would be this year. So 28.
Okay. So
So
you
about
lived a
10
good amount
years.
of your life as a lesbian.
Yes.
Okay. So then with education, with getting to know people and realizing that there is such a thing as transgender and what you identify with, and getting educated and all of those things that you said, because it is a process. And that's what I want people to understand, that it's a well thought out process. And there's a lot of steps that one gets to take in order to live their life as their true authentic self. There's a lot of things. It's not like one morning you can wake up and go, I'm transgender, and now like the world will know me, right? As a man. So you used to have a different name. Yes, your birth name was different.
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yes, totally different.
yeah, and you decided to change that on your own as well.
Correct.
And everyone always asks, I know this is always a popular question, how did you come up with the name Carson? Like what had you give that yourself that name?
I really hope my mom's watching this right now because I shared it to my Facebook Live, so I'm really hoping. Um, Carson was actually the first name that my mom wanted to name me. It was like one of the very few names, and they ended up going towards my birth name, which is Chelsea, not Carson. And then when I realized it didn't really fit me anymore, it wasn't really, because I wanted it more to be something gender neutral. It didn't have to be super masculine, but I definitely think Chelsea wouldn't have fit this body that I'm stepping into for sure. So it was kind of like my thank you to my mom, especially for accepting me and um, being by my side during this process, that I kind of went back to my roots and picked the first name that she ever thought of.
Nice. It's a little tribute to your mom.
Yeah, and I wanted to stay the same initials, so I wanted something with a C.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
Carson it was.
that makes sense. In case you had anything with your initials on it, that's pretty smart.
I can
No,
keep it
no,
forever.
of course you thought about that. So Which probably brings some people that are watching to another question. And I also want to say, if you're watching live, feel free. If you have any questions about transgender or what it is to be transgender, any questions to Carson, he'd be more than happy to answer for you live tonight on here. If you're re-watching the recording, go ahead and ask questions, and we'll make sure that we answer your questions when you put them in the comments, because the notification will pop up. So you mentioned your mom. Okay, so it's always a big question for people. How did you tell your family? So like here, how old are you?
28.
Okay, so you're 28 years old. In your whole life, your mother, your father, your family members have known you as this little girl, then this young woman, knowing you as Chelsea.
Yeah.
So then like, what do you just call them up on the phone one day? Do you drive to their house? Like, how did you tell your family? And then what was their reaction, and how are you being as a family with this transition? Because I know there's probably a lot of people out here that, number one, people could be sitting here having that same question, that I'm transgender and I'm afraid to share it with my family and I don't know how. Or maybe they think that their children are, and they don't know how to address it, right, with their children or their friends or their family. So number one, how did you do it, and what would you tell people that are scared to do that?
Well, I actually had to do it twice, believe it or not, because my parents are separated. So both my parents are remarried. So I first decided to do it with my dad and my stepmom. That was the first people that I went to talk to first about it. And I didn't want to do it over the phone. I thought that was going to be kind of like not as intimate. And I wanted them to really understand that like this wasn't something that was easy for me. Number one, to tell them. Number two, to even be transitioning. So I actually drove to their house with my sister. I had my sister with me for backup, just in case anything hit the fan. Yeah,
Yeah.
just in case. I was like, hey, I'm gonna need you to come with me to our parents' house so that in case anything, we could just leave. But
Got it.
um, they took me coming out as a lesbian very well, but there was still something about it that scared me so much. I mean, I can like feel what I was feeling at that point, even driving to my parents' house. And I told my sister right before so that she knew what we were doing. So we get there and we're all just kind of like hanging out and we're sitting on the porch. And I was like, hey, I really need to tell you guys something. And it's really important that I drove all the way here to tell you. And I kept just like not saying it because I was so nervous. And my stepmom, like my family's so funny. She was like, are you gonna get a sex change or something? And I was like, listen, we don't call it that anymore. Like that's like way
You're
back in
watching.
your day. I was like,
Don't
now we
call
call it
it
transition.
sex change anymore. So don't call it that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sex changes like no one says that anymore. But she was kind of joking, yet I feel like they knew somehow because I didn't even when I quote unquote came out to them as a lesbian, they kind of told me. It was kind of weird. Like they were like, we know that there's like something going on. And it was the same thing when I decided to transition, and they were great about it. Like even after they joked about it, I was like, yeah, that's what's happening. And they were like, okay, it's going to take us some getting used to. And I told them, I said, I know like it's not easy for me, so I know it's not easy for you, and I don't expect it to ever be easy for anyone. um and how they're taking it, it, like I said, it's hard. And not hard as like they don't want to spend time with me, because I know I'm very blessed to be in a situation where both of my parents, my biological parents, don't disown me because of it. It's more hard because I've lived 28 years of my life as a woman, and then also with the same name. Like they're the ones that gave me that name in birth. So it's sometimes there's slip ups, and they'll say Chelsea or they'll say she or her. But I mean, I don't really take offense to it. I know there's some people that do. I feel like I have a very different mindset when it comes to that. I'm very compassionate with people when it comes to my transitioning, because a lot of people aren't educated on it. And even myself as a lesbian, I wasn't educated on any type of transgender transitioning, any other genders, anything like that. So I try to do my best with them to be compassionate and they correct themselves now. Like if they accidentally say Chelsea or she, most of the time they'll change it to Carson.
So you had
So
a really
that's
fortunate experience then, because unfortunately
yes,
there are a lot of people whose family um, doesn't get that you're the same human being with the same heartbeat, right? With the same
yeah,
personality and all of that. And there's so many transgender people, right, that are homeless, that are kicked out of their homes, that are, uh, like they're not allowed to be part of their family anymore, or their churches, their synagogues. I mean, you name it. Like once they identify as a certain way, um, unfortunately, they're not loved anymore or seen as the
very
same
much.
person. And I really want people to get that, everybody that's watching, that every transgender person and Carson has the same heart that when they were born, has the same personality, is the same exact person, except for he doesn't identify, right, with the gender that he was born into his body. And with today and our science and amazing like doctors that are out there and different things that are becoming available through health insurance and different things now, you finally have paved a way to where you can start to actually live your authentic self. So you had a really good experience with coming out to your family, which I can remember you calling me and saying you were so nervous. And
Yeah, very nervous.
yeah, and I was so happy when you shared with me that result of it. So, what would you say to people that are watching? Like I said, that if they're identified as transgender and they're having a hard time, speaking it out loud. Number one, what would you say to them, and what would you say to their families that are watching that maybe some like they're having a challenge with it and they're not able to be as open as your family is?
Yeah, well, and that kind of ties into the second part of that is when I told my biological mother, her side of the family, and they're probably watching too, I to where it's still not the best thing in the world, what I have chosen to do. Religion was actually one of my biggest fears with coming out because of my mother's side of the family being very Christian based, which there is nothing wrong with that at all. Like, I believe people can believe whatever makes them wake up in the morning and want to be a better human being, whatever that may be. Um, and when I told her, it still took a while because there is such a strong foundation that she has built for herself and her family, and going back around that in some religions, like, this isn't okay. This may be like, there's all sorts of things that this could be tied into in many different religions and stuff like that. It's just the one that you choose to believe. um but it took some time. It took some time, and I think really my advice that I would give to anyone who thinks they may or may not be transgender, first off, before telling anyone, I mean, maybe like your closest friends, of course, but family wise, I would really do research. I mean, that's what I did first. I wanted to make sure that this was me, because it can it can be very confusing to people, especially people that don't understand this. So if I'm going to someone who has never heard anything about anything but quote unquote gay people, and I'm saying, "Hey, I think I might be transgender," and I tell my parents that, and then I find out later down the road it's like, "No, I'm just actually it's just a lesbian."
Mhm.
It can confuse them. Um and like I said, without proper education, it gets to be a mess. So I would really like advise people to get super clear on if this is you, and if it is, even though there may be a lot of people that don't like it, and it could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be your colleagues, there is nothing more freeing than owning all of who you are. And I would be lying if I said that you might not lose family members and friends, because it'll probably happen. It'll probably happen. And I think people sugarcoat that a lot, because where we think that our friends don't revolve around politics and all this social stuff, when it comes down to this, sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens.
And that's why it's so important. I'm a huge stand for human rights, right? Like a huge stand for human rights with an emphasis, like I like to focus on the LGBTQIA community because I'm a part of it, right? I identify as a lesbian woman, and I don't think that a lot of people that haven't been in our shoes, right, as a lesbian woman, as a transgender man, anyone that's out of the normal of American culture society, I think a lot of times there's a lack of compassion. I think that people have empathy, right? At times where they can put ourselves in other people's shoes and say, like, I can't imagine what that would be like, right? To have to tell your family, I can't imagine what that would be like. Um, and that's a form of empathy. Compassion, on the other hand, is really being able to share a human interaction, right, with somebody with acceptance. So for me, there's a huge distinction there because compassion is acceptance of another person and having that mutual experience, right? Like I remember when you said, Chris, I'm transgender, and I actually had that moment of compassion with you because I could feel your nervousness telling me, even though I'm cool with stuff,
Yeah,
but I could feel
totally.
your nervousness telling me. But I can remember actually having that compassion human experience of like feeling your joy, right? Of you finally being able to tell me and got it. And from that moment, you were Carson. I think like in the very beginning, I called you by your birth name a couple times. Like I only had a couple slips. And then today I had a slip about like your gender that like
The pronouns.
that was hilarious. So,
Like,
you know, but I think it's important that people understand that like I'm kind of well, I'm not kind of, I am doing this interview with you tonight because I don't want that to have to be a thing where people lose their friends, where people lose their family when they come out as transgender, right? Like I don't want people to be homeless because they're starting to live their true authentic self. And like you said, not everybody has to agree with it, and not everybody has to understand it. And there's this respect of your dignity of a human being that you get to still have, right,
totally.
in this nation and in this world. Which brings me to the next thing. Like there's a lot going on, right? Like there's a lot going on in the world right now. Like a lot of the LGBTQIA community has been at stake, right, politically, with certain rights being taken away, military and transgender, like, all of that stuff. So what do you have to say for people that want to take away your rights as a
I
human being?
mean, it's a tough conversation, because it's no matter what I choose to identify as, who I choose to love, or my pronouns, or what body parts I have, I'm still a human being. And I mean, it makes me sad, of course, that there are people out there that would be willing to take rights away from another human just because they don't agree. And it's kind of like you said, like, to accept me, you don't have to agree. You don't have to agree on my choices or my lifestyle, or what I'm doing to my body, what I'm presenting myself as, but to just literally, like, I'm the same as the next person standing next to me, no matter what color they are, no matter what they identify as, their culture, their background. I still have a beating heart as the same as the next person. So taking away my rights due to my gender, or what I'm choosing to do, is it's sad at the end of the day. And there's a lot of politics and stuff happening, and I don't really get too much into those, just because I feel like if I pay so much attention to the media and everything that's happening, that it's just going to, I'm allowed to consume me. And then it's going to, like, I'm trying to think of how best to explain this. Like, it starts to fill my life with a lot of hate because I get angry. I get super angry that there's stuff happening to other human beings. Like it's not just me, and it's not just transgender people or gay people. There are things out there happening to all walks of life. And I try to focus all of my energy on what I can do to make it better. Um, Educating people. That's why I was a huge yes to this. Um, like I tend to put my energy towards more things that I think will serve rather than listening to the media and listening to the politics, because it could happen at any point, anytime with anyone. If it's not somebody who's in the White House, it could be the person who's the governor. Like I never know what's gonna happen. I really don't. And it's like I said, I try my best to put my energy towards things that are gonna educate people, um, for what I'm up to specifically. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's powerful. It's like that old saying, what you resist persists, right? So if you
Yeah,
don't give your attention to the people that draw the negativity, then it's going to go away eventually. And that's the work that we do, right? In the field that we're in the work of transformational and personal development and leadership, we talk about that all the time.
yeah.
What we give our attention to actually gets created, in our own space. So, yeah. So again, we're talking to Carson Underwood, who is a transgender man, and we are on here tonight to educate people on what it is to be a transgender man, that he has the same heartbeat that he had as a little baby. And he gets to live a very fulfilled life and be his authentic self. And we've been talking about his family and all that good stuff. So I got to ask the questions, right? So there's a lot of questions that people want to know about transgender, and they're like, can I ask that? Is it rude? Is it not? What do I go about? So you know me. I'm just gonna ask you, and I already know because like
Here it is.
yeah, but we're pretty good friends. I already know some of this stuff, but like I do think it's important for people that are watching to find out and ask questions. So again, if you're watching, feel free to ask any questions on anything. Like Carson is a total open book and said he will answer whatever. He's got nothing to hide. He did that too long, so he's here to answer all of your
I was in
questions.
the closet for way too long.
So you said that just this year you started living authentically as a man. So I can't help but
Mhm.
notice the fantastic facial hair you have forming.
And you can't even see it all on video. I wish there's so much more. It's coming in. Unfortunately, it's coming in like a red color, and I have my grandpa to thank for that because he's got a lot of red hair. So I'm like, please God, let it get darker. But yeah, I mean, I'm growing facial hair like the hair on my head right now.
Yeah. So in order for you to be growing facial hair, that means that you must be taking testosterone. Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So what does that mean? So when I say you're taking testosterone, like how would you educate that to people? Like in the day in the life of Carson, what does that look like?
So, I mean, testosterone is a male hormone that needs to be in your body in order to produce stuff like especially with transitioning, like my voice is lowered. For people that do know me and knew me prior, I had a very, very high pitched feminine voice, even though I dressed super masculine. It also has the facial hair grow. I'm trying to think of my face is structured a little bit different in the past. I've been on testosterone for 7 months, and it does all sorts of things in the body. It actually moves fat in the body in different places. Um, you grow hair everywhere. Some people do. I shouldn't say everyone, because it actually testosterone actually reacts to people in different ways. So some people can take testosterone for their entire life and never have one hair come on their face. And it's all genetics. It's all, and there's men that walk around here that also don't have facial hair.
100%.
But
Yep.
yeah, so it's the 100% guarantee that's going to happen is usually the voice drop. That's one of the biggest things. But what I have to do is there are many ways to take testosterone, but the way that I take it specifically is I'm prescribed it by my doctor, and I have to actually inject it with a needle.
So
So
you
I
do
have
it yourself.
Yes, I do it to myself. I give myself a shot in the leg, like the hamstring area, once every 2 weeks. I have to give myself the shot.
Now that's for the rest of your life, correct?
I mean, yes. So there's a lot out there about it. So I could stop taking it at any point if I wanted to. And like I said, the facial hair would stay. The voice would stay. The one thing that would come back is having a menstrual cycle.
Got it.
So like I don't have one at all anymore.
Mhm.
So and some people choose to not take it anymore because there is high risk with taking testosterone, because you're pumping a hormone into your body that is not naturally produced. As women, you actually do have a certain amount of testosterone in your body, but there's healthy levels. And I mean, I'm exceeding that very far with actually taking the injections. And I mean, that can do something to the human body. Does it happen all the time? No, but there are high risks because doing that, and some people end up stopping. But
Now, let me ask you this, because this is an interesting hot topic, really, that's out there right now.
hot topic,
So
can't wait.
when you say that you could stop taking testosterone and you would have your menstrual cycle, so there are more and more transgender men carrying babies. Now, is that
I've seen that.
something? So, like, if you stop taking testosterone, would you be able to carry a child at some point?
I think I would be able to. I've never wanted to. That's always been
It's
my thing.
actually a very big thing right now, and it's like on magazines and doctors' offices, and like, because it was like
Yes.
this thing that was never going to be possible, where a man, right, could be pregnant, and we are showing that with today's science and all of this stuff, that it absolutely in the year 2020 is possible.
I actually saw a post not too long ago that made me start thinking, because I'm always open to anything that I read. I'm borderline gullible, but then I like bring my my sense into it. But it was actually a post that was saying, um, that it was like, oh, I'm trying to remember exactly how it's, because I don't want to butcher it because it was so powerful when I read it about
Okay, we won't judge you if you
it.
butcher.
Don't judge me, because it was saying about how a transgender man has a period, so there's no way that he could be identified as a man. And there was another person that responded after, and they were saying, well, there is cis women who don't have periods, so does that make them not a woman? And I thought it was really interesting how in society we have these little things that we think, like, if you don't have this, there's no, like, you can't identify as a woman, or you can't be a woman, or anything like that. And there are plenty of women out there that can't get pregnant. And so are
There's
you
also
saying,
plenty of women out there that have suffered from breast cancer, that have
hey,
had.
yeah, and don't have breasts?
Correct.
And vice versa, there's men that can't get women pregnant due to like what is ever, there's a lot of like medical stuff. And I mean, and obviously the gender we're given at birth is all medical, but I think we've evolved into a time where it's not so much about the medical perspective, but it's more about what you feel you are, you know?
Yeah. So you're taking testosterone, you're living your life as a man now, and you have an amazing girlfriend as well, who I believe is watching.
Oh, is she?
Yes, I saw
I
her.
can't see.
Yes. So, a lot of people might have a question is like, how does that work? Right.
Works
So,
great. I'm just kidding.
but what I mean by that, so you identify as a straight man.
Correct.
Okay. So do you want to talk about that at all?
Of course, I will. So
Okay.
I'm not one that's big into labels. Like I don't really I'm not ashamed of who I am. So don't take that by any meaning, but at the same time, I'm also not flashy with who I am. You know, like if anybody sees me on the street, or if I meet someone new, I identify as a man. I don't say that I am a trans man or a transgender man or someone who has transitioned. If the topic of conversation comes up, of course, because I love every bit of who I am in the journey, because without who I was, I would never be who I am. But I identify as a straight man because I am a man who likes women. So identify as a straight man. And my partner is a cisgender woman, so she was born a woman, and she also identifies as straight.
Correct. So you are a heterosexual couple.
Correct. We're a heterosexual couple, just like anybody else you see walking down the street.
Yes. And I think that's important to talk about because, well, I also know, being your friend, that that's a question. And I like, in your beautiful girlfriend's name is Ariana. And, I'm
Yes.
sure that people have asked her, but you're straight, right? Like, she could have had some questions. I don't know. I'm making that up, right? That
Oh,
she,
she did. Totally.
like, because
Totally.
I've been around the world a little bit, right? So I picture people going, but you're straight. How can you be dating Carson? Because Carson is a transgender straight man. That's why.
Mhm.
So,
And
and
she only sees me as a man.
correct.
Like, I mean, it's pretty hard to see me as a woman, except for a couple other things that we can't show on live, obviously. But even with that degree, there is so much that has evolved in helping people with dysphoria, which dysphoria is like feeling uncomfortable with body parts or the way that your body is, um, specifically around transgender people. There's so much that they have come out with that eases all of that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying with science and technology. And like, come on, if you're an adult and you're watching this, use your mind, right? There's ways.
Yeah,
Okay. There are ways for
promise.
people to get around that. I promise you. Okay. So, what would you say? So you said, there's obviously some parts that I can't show. So there's the big question that everybody always wants to know. Carson always wants to know
What's in my pants?
what's in your pants and what do you got up top, right? It's like the famous question that gets
Uh,
asked, right? Now, you're one of those people,
yes.
like you said, that you don't get offended. You don't get offended. So, but what would you say? Like, I mean, this is my personal preference. Like, you don't go around asking a transgender person that on a daily basis. Hi, my name is Chris, and what's in your pants? That's a
I
weird,
wouldn't.
right? Because here's what I want to say, people that are watching, my friends, family. Okay. Here's what I want to say. I don't go up to anyone else on the street and go, hey, my name is Chris. Nice to meet you. What's in your pants? Like, I don't think of anybody else's body parts, right? Why would I think of Carson's body parts? Like,
True.
like I always think it's the most bizarre thing. Maybe because I'm super open-minded and like, thank goodness I was
Yeah.
raised the way that I was raised. But I always find that fascinating because I'm like, it's really not normal to think of people's body parts when you meet them or you hear about them. So, number one, let's talk about like the top surgery. Like, have you had it? Do you want to have it? Like, what's going on?
Not yet. 100% I'm going to have top surgery. I haven't had it yet. But like I said, we are growing and evolving, and there are things like what I do is I wear a binder.
Well,
So
can
it's
I just
kind of,
interrupt you for 1 second? So when
yeah,
I say top surgery, we're talking about Carson removing the breast that he was born with as a child.
those things.
Yeah.
Yes. So I have a thing that's called a binder. It looks similar to a sports bra. We could say that's the only really thing that I know how to the closest thing I know to describe it as. It's not something that you wear all the time because it's compressed. So it actually is designed to push breast down so you look more flat chested. So that when you're walking out in the world, it makes it seem like you're flat chested.
Okay, so eventually you're gonna get the surgery, and those tend to be pretty pricey, right?
Yeah, they're about 9 to 10 grand.
Yeah. So it's a commitment
Very much so.
to do that, and then there's some pretty amazing surgeons out there. So you're gonna
Yes.
you know,
Especially in South Florida. South Florida's got so many different top surgery surgeons out there that are some of like world known,
right.
worldwide for sure.
Okay, and so then of course people always want to know what about downstairs, right? So these are the
Yeah.
questions that people, for some reason, Carson, always want to know. So I'm putting it out there tonight because I am. So like, are you gonna do it? What are your thoughts on it? What's going on?
I am not. And some people think I am absolutely weird for that. Some people like it's interesting even in the transgender community, people have judgments on it, which I was like, whoa, I thought you're supposed to be my people. Like, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, the big thing being I don't have a lot of dysphoria around that area. It's not like it's not that big of a deal. I mean, of course, sometimes do I have my moments? Yes. But even bigger than that, the surgery is a lot of money, which put the money aside in reality, there is no guarantee that it will function normally.
Right.
They end up having to take a piece of skin like out of your leg or out of like the back, I think it's your shoulder or your arm to create a male body part, but you could lose all sensation. Like and you would pay all that money and go through all of that kind of stuff and there's no guarantee. And that's kind of like with any surgery. There's no guarantee that it's going to be normally functioning. And like we've been talking about, there is so much out there for the fraction of a price. You can still feel the way that you want, and have the dysphoria not be as strong. And the whole topic about the quote unquote like what's in your pants conversation, um, like I said, I told you before, I don't mind answering it. I'm a little bit more open than your average person. I wouldn't go around asking a transgender person it, because then it connects the dots of, are you asking me what I have in my pants to verify who I am? Is one of the big things.
Right. Yeah,
And
you
it's,
wouldn't go around doing that to people. You just
yeah,
wouldn't.
so it's,
Well, it's
if
not.
you're comfortable with the person, it's different for
Yeah,
sure.
it's not etiquette, to go around and ask people that question. So I wanted to make people aware of that. Um,
Mhm.
so, and I also think it's important because, like I spoke about, like you have a super healthy relationship with a beautiful woman, and there is love out there, right? For anyone that is being challenged with transitioning to being transgender, there is love, and there are people out there that will love you unconditionally for who you are and are attracted to people, not necessarily the body parts or the gender or things like that. So if you're like struggling with coming out as your authentic self, I think, Carson, you're a great example of professionally and with your friends and with your family, and having a beautiful, healthy relationship of really being able to have it all and surround yourself with people that are going to support you, right? Like, because you have a really great support system in your life, because you also, what people need to know about you is that when you started your professional career, you were known as Chelsea, right? The lesbian woman Chelsea, like when you started your professional career.
That was me.
So you
Mhm.
also came into your career transitioning, and that's not always easy, right? Like as a profession
Not
and
at all.
career, and you played softball and different things with coaching and working with different universities and stuff like that. So you had to be like, hey, I'm Chelsea that used to play softball with you, and now I'm Carson, and
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you, coach you on this workshop on the field as well too. So there's been a lot of so many things that you should be proud of, like, and I'm going to call you like the poster child for transgender, because you actually had to be successful in your career, your personal life, and your life is really starting to take off. And I want to point out to you that that all started when you really started being your true authentic self. Like, I hope that you like see
For
that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people watching, and Justine said, "Oh, I love Carson. He was in my integration course." So she's saying,
Aw.
Danny Mulcahy is saying, "Thank you for being so open with all of us. I love your confidence. It's beautiful to watch you and listen to you, and that she loves you." And MJ, MJ is saying, "Super
MJ.
love right there. Love you, Carson." And then Ariana says, "I'm proud of my man," with the little heart face, of course.
Aw.
So, and then Maureen is saying, "The change I notice most, Carson, is how you seem happy, free, and comfortable with yourself. And I love seeing this." So, like, it almost brings me to tears, because I know some of the challenges and the struggles you've had in your life. And I'm so proud, like, to be your colleague and to be your friend and to have you as a guest on my show tonight, because, I know it's really important to both of us that we educate people, you know, um, on this, because it's really funny. Because, like I said, identifying as a lesbian woman, all of a sudden, about a few years ago, everybody all of a sudden thought I was transgender, right? It was like this thing that was starting to happen, is people were asking me like,
Yeah, yeah.
like, because I've always been, people always use the male pronouns on me, because they just look at me and they think I'm a guy. I've been dealing with that, oh geez, for what am I, 40, so about like 20 years I've been dealing, with that. And I used to get so angry, but I'll never forget, it was started about a few years ago. people actually coming up to me and asking me, what pronouns do you prefer? Now, some people might have been like, you know, I
Yeah.
answered, I was like, I mean, she, and
Don't confuse everybody.
now everyone's gonna be like, Chris Austin. No, I'm not. Okay, so she and her, right, would be my answers because that's what I identify with. But I had this moment where I was like, wow, the world is really shifting. People are asking me what my pronouns are. Like, I'm not just being called like a boy or a man anymore, right? Or because I have a name Chris, it's like Pat, like that gender neutral name, you know? So, like, I go by Chris, even though my birth name is Christine, I go by Chris. So I confuse people a lot because I'm a lesbian and would be considered gender non-conforming because I'm not your typical woman, right, in the world. Like, I only wear men's clothing. I have short hair, you know, some of my things that I like are masculine, but a lot of my beingness is very feminine, right? But I remember that moment where I was like, wow, the world is shifting. People are asking me my pronouns. This is so cool. So now, like, there's no offense. I actually get excited when people ask me because I'm like, yes, people like Carson, right, can have like a free and life and everything's great and wonderful. Now, you know, of course, there's different parts of the country where you're not safe. There's different parts in each state where you're not safe, and you have to be careful. I mean, there was that whole North Carolina bathroom thing, right? Like, I was given a hard time at one point when I would be traveling to North Carolina for work in certain parts and in traveling on 95 and driving. Like, I got scared sometimes to go into the bathrooms, right? Like, with what was happening in the world about you know, that people think that you shouldn't be able to use the men's room, Carson, right? Like, that was a big political thing that, like, that you should still have to use the woman's bathroom. And what do you have to say to our viewers that are watching that they think that you should have to walk into a woman's bathroom?
If I walked into a woman's bathroom, someone would call security. I'm just being honest because I mean, I now that I have facial hair, I don't really get misgendered too often.
Yeah.
I get called a man, sir, him, he. But imagine if I were to walk into the woman's bathroom.
You'd have the
That would
stories well, I
just
do 10 times more. Yeah.
that
It's
would
weird.
blow my mind.
Yeah.
It would be weird. It
Yeah.
would be super weird. And my preference for the bathroom is to use the what's it called? The family restrooms actually.
Ah, they have no gender.
It makes it way easier.
Yep.
Yes, it makes it way easier for me. Um just because yeah, I don't want to deal with all that stuff and to where one day I hope I don't have to. Right now it's just easier.
Yep. Yeah, so Carson gets to use the men's room because he's a man and he identifies as a man. so so that's, and you know, again, people bring their politics into it, they bring religion into it, and it'd be kind of silly. And what do you have to say, what do you have to say to people? This is a interesting conversation about athletes, right? A lot of people believe that if you're a transgender um male to female, that you shouldn't be allowed to play collegiate sports or professional sports because you are a man yet playing in a women's league, and they believe that you have an advantage at that. So what would you say for that topic of conversation for like the you know, the men that
It's
trans,
interesting.
you know?
So it's interesting because I'm somewhere in the middle,
Hmm.
and like I own all of what I believe in and I don't feel that anything anybody else believes in is right or wrong. Um for me it would depend on how far they are into their transitioning because it does take the body a while to grasp all of the hormones to really start functioning as whatever gender you are wanting to function as. And let's say if there is a man who is identifying as a woman, so let's say they change their name, but they're not taking any kind of hormones and still have the quote unquote body and like I said, and the testosterone levels are still the same, they are going to have an advantage, a
100%.
100%, because there is some science that goes into all this. Especially, like I said, there's science into the fact of how much testosterone I need to put in my body to have it function as if I'm a man.
Correct.
So for me, it would really depend on that, because there could be some advantage points, 100%. Because if you're still having the muscle mass and the testosterone, because testosterone's a steroid, so it would almost be as if there was a woman in the NCAA or whatever taking steroids, which is illegal. So it would need to be super clear on how far are they into their transitioning. Are their estrogen levels at the same peak as the average woman? Is their testosterone levels at the same as the average woman, which might be a little bit higher, because I don't think we've gotten in science yet to where we can make it exactly the same.
Mhm.
Um, but that's really my 2 cents on it, to be
That's
completely
an
honest, and that's
educated
coming from
sense.
someone
I'm gonna say
of
that's
the
an
community.
educated
Yeah, it,
that's an educated 2 cents because so many people are just going, oh, I don't think it's right. Oh no, they're this, they're that. There's actually science behind it. So imagine if colleges and universities and professional sports teams actually had a doctor, right? Actually had a doctor on staff
yeah.
that for in 2020, right, almost heading into 2021, for any athlete that has transitioned, that they make sure that their levels are at the point to be in integrity with
Because it's more than just human rights. Because a lot of people are saying that it has to do with human rights, and equality is equality for all. So
Mhm.
we want to give equal equality towards all women who are playing in the sport, that are cis women or whatever they identify as. We want to make sure they're all equally at the same level. So regardless if you were born a woman or not, if you are functioning as if you are and have the same hormone levels that are not going to put you to any advantage, then they can play wherever they want. But we also got to take all that into consideration, because it would put a transgender woman I mean, she'd probably blow through any of the NCAA records at that point
Totally.
with flying colors, because they're basically taking a steroid.
Yeah. So it's a very educational answer, right, that you have there. And I wish that more people would be educated. So athletic directors or colleges and universities, it matters. Okay. So like get a doctor on your team that can support in that whole debate, and things like that. And we only have about 7 minutes left. So I do want to let people know what you're up to. So as I said in the beginning, you're a transformational trainer. So you actually work as a trainer. You are officially a trainer now. Congratulations on that because you
Thank you.
achieved that early on. So you're currently in your internship program, become a trainer, and you have rocked it. So you just had your very first solo training this past weekend. So congratulations on that. Your
Yes.
camp trainings.
Thank you.
It was an honor to hire you and have you be on. And why don't you tell people, because I think it's kind of exciting because it's the first time you're actually going to talk about out loud in public
Yeah.
about what you have coming up and starting that I really think and I'm really excited about, that's going to make a big difference in our LGBTQIA community and for people. So why don't you tell them what you're about to start?
Yes. So, other than me being a trainer, which I think educates people in itself, with all walks of life, I am going to be starting up a YouTube channel it's going to do like question and answer kind of thing. Like anybody who has any questions on transitioning, what it means to be kind of like what we're doing here. Um, and it's almost, I want it to be a platform where people can share their experience, because not a lot of people know that transitioning is different for each individual. So there may be some things that I go through that if I talk to 5 other trans men, they've never experienced. But to almost have this like revolving door of people coming in and out, sharing what has happened to them during transitioning, so that people feel included and people feel like they have someone to talk to reach out to, and even if it's just every week that I'm posting a video or whatnot, it'll be a great platform for people to get educated. And at
It's
the
going to
same
make a huge
time,
difference in people's lives. A
yeah,
huge.
and for the same time to see what happens for me in the next year, because like I said, I'm only 7 months into transitioning. So
Right. And there's already been so many changes that you're going through. And I truly believe that YouTube channel that you're going to start can actually save lives. I think if there is a trans
100%.
struggling or their family has disowned them, I guarantee you, Carson, oh, I get all emotional just thinking about it, that you're going to save lives through your channel. So that's not all, though. You're going to start that amazing YouTube channel. And then what else?
And then I'm in the process, in the works of designing a coaching program that will specifically be around people who are transitioning, and their loved ones. So if there are people, like I said, their parents, sister, brother, anything in between, because most people, believe it or not, want to understand. They really really do, and there's not a lot of places that loved ones can reach out to really understand what their kids going through, because sometimes, especially early on in transitioning, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain what they're feeling. It's hard to explain what they're going through. um, and so I'm going to make a coaching structure for, like I said, people who are transitioning in the process or are thinking about it, and their loved ones.
It's powerful. It's powerful and it's so needed. It's so needed in today's world because younger and younger, here's what I love about what's happening. People are actually being authentic and knowing who they are at a much younger age than in your generation and my generation, because we come from two different generations, right? And more so, like all the Gen X and all the millennials, now all of their children are growing up, and we're it's really cool because they're able to come to their parents at a young age and say, no, I'm a boy, nope, I'm a girl, and things like that. And I think that it's so needed, and it's so the next level of transformational work that you're doing and giving back to the community. And ultimately what we both stand for is for the world, right? To have love and peace in their lives. So I'm so excited. I have your back with anything that you're doing with that, anything at all. And as that gets going, we'll bring you back on again, right? We'll bring you back on again down the road and see like how that's all going and all of that stuff. And I want to thank you. There's so many people on here going, that's awesome. Jazz is on here going, truth, with the fist up, right? Like shouting out to you. Cameron's going VQ3 because he had the opportunity to be with you this weekend. So he's proud of you. And, I just want to say I'm so grateful that you came on tonight and able to share your story, because I know that there are people that are going to share this video with their friends and their family that know that they will support. I ask that if you're on here to share the video, to support myself and Carson on getting the word out on love, respect, and dignity in the world for all human beings, and to really educate people. So if you're open to sharing it to your page, or if you're a member of any of the gay, lesbian, transgender communities where they allow you to share these videos on that page, I'd love for it to get out there and to be known, to really make a difference in people's lives and in the world, because that's what Carson and I are up to only every time we take a breath in our lives. So I thank you for joining us tonight. And I love you. And I'm super proud of you.
Yes.
And you're going to have all your dreams come true. And as far as everybody else goes, stay tuned, because there will be another show next week at 7 p.m. I will launch it on my Chris Austin business page. So if you are not on that page, it's called Chris Austin. So search for that on Facebook and find me Chris Austin on my business page. You can also find me at AMP Trainings. It's a personal development and leadership company that I was talking about, that Carson is a trainer for. You can check out what we're up to on that. We have a training starting in 2 weeks that you can enroll your friends and family into, and I'd love to see you at that. So AMP Trainings, Chris Austin. And you can find Carson. What's your Facebook? Carson Underwood, right?
Carson Underwood.
Carson Underwood, because if you start to follow him on Facebook, you'll get updated on everything that he's going to be up to. And don't you have a different name for Instagram?
Yes, it is. What is my Instagram name? Hold on, because
I
I
always want to
changed
call
it, so
you
that's
under
why I'm like,
swag.
what's my
I
Instagram
always want
name?
to call you under swag,
My Instagram.
but you're like underdog. What are you? What's your
No, I changed it. That's my Instagram is freely and then the underscore Carson. That's my
There you have
Instagram.
it.
Freely
You can
underscore
catch
Carson.
Carson on Instagram at freely underscore Carson, and you can catch me on Instagram at Chris Austin. There's a trend here. You see that? Or am trainings. Okay, so I love
Oh my
everybody.
goodness.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And Carson, you have my heart. I love you, and I'll see you around, my friend. Everyone else, take care.
See ya. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.